Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to the #1 sports podcast, broadcasting Sundays at 9 a.m.-ish in Sacramento, California. Sports Talk 916. Now here are your hosts, Greg Bowl and Coach Greg Barroso.
All right, trying this out. It's just Greg Bowl right now. Greg Barroso is having mucho technical problems, along with Be Live having mucho technical problems. I'm not even sure if anyone can hear me. We've been having some mic issues and some connectivity issues, but we're giving it a go. Episode 286. Lots going on this week. Lots happening around the world of sports, in Sacramento, nationwide. Ton going on. I'm just gonna do a quick audio check to make sure this is working. Cool. All right. We have audio. That works for me. So, like I said, lots going on. Lots potentially to get to. Hopefully, Veroza will be able to join in. This is probably the first show in maybe like 8 months that I've actually gone through and actually wrote up show notes, and it just so happens that he's not around for it. So, with that being said, as I mentioned, it is episode 286. And a lot going on. We're going to start off with something we talked about last week a very little bit. Very, sad story that came out of Los Angeles, out of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim's franchise, and that was the passing of young pitcher Tyler Skaggs. They had Tyler Skaggs Day a couple days ago at the Angels Stadium, and to say that the baseball gods were looking down upon that team is an understatement. So they had Tyler Skaggs Day. They obviously had 45 painted on the pitcher's mound. They had a big memorial for him set up. His mom threw out the first pitch, and by the way, she threw a strike. It was a dart right down the middle. So great job to her. Every player decided to wear, or the team decided that every player was going to wear number 45 and Skaggs on their back. Very reminiscent of a Jackie Robinson Day style jersey setup. Everyone was wearing what their teammates, their lost teammates jersey. It was pretty cool to see. First pitch, Mike Trout sees, takes it yard, 454 feet to dead center. If you're not aware, Tyler Skaggs wears number 45. So that was kind of reminiscent. 454, the 45, obviously, a big number for that. The team scores 7 runs in the first inning and ends up scoring 13 total, 7/13 being his birthday, which was yesterday, July 13th. The team, they throw a collective no-hitter. 2 pitchers combined for a collective no-hitter. And the last time that occurred was on July 13, 1991. I mentioned July 13th being Tyler Skaggs' birthday. July 13, 1991, the day that Tyler Skaggs was born. So a lot of factors tie into that, and someone made the point to say it's only fitting considering the fact that they play for the Angels, and there's obviously Angels in the outfield there. What's up, James? So very cool. And then the moment that I thought was really neat was after the game, every player went out to the mound and covered the entire mound minus the pitching rubber with that Skaggs 45 jersey that they all wore. So that was really cool to see. So props to the Angels organization. They had a great night remembering their lost teammate, and hopefully they continue to do so. The last collective no-hitter in California. Where's the weak link? The weak link is having some computer problems, so waiting to see if Rosa is able to connect again. So yeah, really cool thing down there in Anaheim this week. I thought that was really neat, and like I said, kudos to that organization for pulling that off. More baseball talk. more baseball stuff. The Giants. They lost yesterday, but the Giants have been kind of the darlings of the dance at this point, right? The talk all season has been blow it up, rebuild, everyone's leaving, trade everybody. Really big trade pieces obviously have been Madison Bumgarner, Will Smith, Sam Dyson, Tony Watson. Pablo Sandoval emerges as a bit of a trade piece as well. And ironically, this Giants team figured out a way to hit some home runs. Evan Longoria has been knocking the cover off the ball. Austin Slater's been hitting the ball really well. Tyler Austin. I mean, the list goes on. And the Giants find themselves 5.5 back of the wild card. And Farhan Zaidi was asked last week regarding the way his team is playing and what they're planning on doing during the upcoming trade deadline, which is 15 days from now. What are they going to be sellers? What are they looking to do? You know, there's a lot of reports that Madison Bumgarner is not going to get the haul that many anticipated him getting. And Zaidi came out and basically said, the team keeps playing this way. They may not be sellers at all. They actually could be buyers at the deadline. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It could be a sign that they are looking for stability for Bruce Bochy to finish out his tenure with the San Francisco Giants. There could be thought that, you know, this team could potentially make the postseason. I mean, like I said, they're 5.5 back of the second wild card spot. They're not playing terrible baseball. I mean, ironically, the worst player on the field right now is Joe Panik. He can't hit the ball. He can't field the ball. But everyone else is doing well. James, I think you're absolutely right. That was my initial thought as well, was that he's just saying that so the vultures are circling the prey. He's looking to somehow entice other general managers to up the ante, up the bids a little bit for those players that are available. But I do feel that if, you know, at some point there could be a real possibility that if this Giants team continues to play well, that they will go out and try to acquire some talent at the deadline. Patrick Kilkenny, my A's are playing hot baseball once again. We're going to get to the A's here in just a second. James, however, only 5 games out of the wild card, but it's fool's gold. Maybe they stay close, but come in the season, they'll be at least 8 or 9 games out, and will regret not selling off some pieces. You know, I don't know. I feel that, you know, Bochy has a weird way of getting the best out of the worst players. And this feels very reminiscent of a Bruce Bochy-led squad that's going to overachieve. And if that does turn out to be the case, and he gets the most out of those guys, and he gets his 73 wins as the manager this season, and hits 2,000 with the Giants and 2,000 with his career, then, you know, props to Bochy for pulling that off. Am I saying that if they make the playoffs, anything's possible? Then that's a given. But I mean, the Giants are not built for a playoff run. That's just plain and simple. It's just not going to happen. You know, they're playing decent baseball. Oddly enough, they're hitting the ball hard. I heard a stat yesterday in the game against Milwaukee. In the first half of the season, Milwaukee had 156 home runs. The Giants had 4 home runs in that game, and that put them at 85 for the season. So, you know, power is obviously lacking. Timely hitting is there. The guys are calling up right now, Yastrzemski and Slater and Austin. Those guys are all playing really well. They're giving some hope to what was bleak circumstance. I think Duggar coming back from injury and Yastrzemski and Slater and those guys playing the way that they are. I think Kevin Pillar is going to be on the move again. I don't see the Giants retaining him, even though they do have player rights or they do have team options with him next season. I just don't think he fits the mold for going forward. And I think he can get some low-end prospects or some middle-end prospects, you know, given the fact that he does have another year of team control. So that'll be an interesting situation. But, I mean, the Giants are 7 games under 500. They're 5 back of the wild card. I mean, San Diego, Colorado, Arizona. I mean, the West is passable. easily they could get past those other teams. Obviously, the Dodgers, again, is as painful as it is every single season. We say this: the Dodgers are playing above and beyond expectation. They are 61-33. Their run differential is 131 runs. That's insane considering the Giants' run differential is -68. But the other teams are extremely within reach. I mean, Arizona's only a game over 500. Colorado and San Diego are both under 500. The Giants are only 3 games back of Colorado, 2.5 back of San Diego, and 4 back of Arizona. So, I mean, it's outside of the Dodgers, the West is very obtainable for a wild card spot. And then the other teams that are in the mix, Pittsburgh, I don't think have any sustainability. Cincinnati is very, very up and down. And then the Philadelphia Phillies are the team basically to lose it, in my opinion, for the wild card. As for the other side, we talked about the A's. Patrick Kilkenny mentioned. We got to mention the A's are playing really hot baseball. They've won 3 in a row. They're 52-41. They're in the second wild card spot right now. And they're playing really, really tough baseball. Their bullpen has been shaky. Kendrick has been amazing. That guy has, I think it's like 15 straight appearances. He hasn't given up a run. They're 6 out of first with Houston, but like I said, they're up in the second wild card spot. So the A's are going to be a team to definitely watch going forward to see if they can sustain what they're doing. It'll be interesting to see if Billy Beane is aggressive at the deadline to see if he can bring in some talent, bring in some salary to keep this team going. That's not really his MO. But anything is possible with Billy Beane in that Oakland A's squad. So lots of happening here in the on the West Coast when it comes to baseball. Anything's possible, anything can happen. It's just a matter of waiting to see what team shows up essentially. So it's kind of interesting. I still think Madison Bumgarner gets traded ultimately to the East. It's either going to be the Yankees or the Minnesota Twins who pull the trigger. I could see Houston get it in the mix as well. With Houston, I mean, you'd be looking at Bumgarner being your 3rd starter, which I think is silly. But that would make them obviously the perennial favorites in the West or in the AL to win outright against the Yankees or the Red Sox if the Red Sox end up making it. It's going to be interesting. Zadie is very meticulous when it comes to the way he handles the trade deadline and the way he handles acquiring talent. So it's going to be interesting to see if he's willing to give up Bumgarner without getting a huge haul back, or if maybe there is something in line that they can go ahead and have that gentleman's agreement that he'll come back to San Francisco for getting some prospects. The other team I think that's in the mix for him would be Atlanta, with all of their prospects that they have available. Then some news about 15 minutes ago, the Giants have recalled Tyler Beede for today's game against Milwaukee, optioning Ray Black back to Sacramento to make that move for Tyler Beede today to get the start. So the Major League Baseball is going to shape up differently than it normally does. I mean, for the Giants, at least for the last 5 years, it's been one thing. But the other thing too that people keep talking about Bumgarner before I switch subjects is, Bumgarner. They keep talking about you want Bumgarner in the playoffs. You want him in the postseason. You want. Well, it's all fine and dandy, but a lot of people tend to forget that the Giants and Bumgarner haven't seen a postseason game since 2014. So to say that they're just going to jump back out there and Bumgarner's going to regain that magic the second he hits the mound in October, I think is a little bit, the reason that there's a little bit of tentative, a little bit of hesitation going after a guy like Bumgarner. Patrick Kilkenny, you think if the A's are still in it for the postseason, they can go after Bumgarner? 2016. I'm sorry. So it's been 3 years since they've made a playoff run. Kilkenny, I think they could. I don't know. I don't see why not. It would be the first time in a long time the Giants and A's made a deal. But again, Zadie is a new leader of the front office. I can see it happening. I think Bumgarner would be a great anchor for that team, especially considering the injuries have really, really hampered the A's front end of their rotation. So that could be something that is to be determined. I wouldn't be shocked if somehow they did. But at the same time, I mean, if Bumgarner waives his trade clause and goes to a team like Oakland, I think there's a better chance that Bumgarner resigns in San Francisco because he doesn't leave the Bay Area. And I think he'd much rather be in San Francisco than he would be over at the Coliseum. And that could just be a sign of the times. I mean, if he's willing to waive everything, then who knows what happens. But yeah, so I really wish Rosa was on for this next part because of the fact that this is going to be something that it's a very much a get off my lawn type subject for the older guy. And if he can get in here, we're trying to get him in now. It'll be great. But so before I bring him in, our audio guy forgot to charge the iPad again this week, so we don't have our soundboard. I just want to remind you guys about Albert Chavez. He is our resident lead sponsor. Albert Chavez, the mortgage king over at United Wholesale Funding and Lending. And if you're looking to buy a home, refinance, if you're looking to figure out what options are available to you, Albert is the guy to call, 916-230-1537. All of his information is on our website as well at sportstalk916.com. He's all over our Facebook page. He's definitely the guy to call if you're wondering what options are maybe out there for you. It is a really good market to buy right now. Interest rates are down and continue to go down. And if you're looking to buy a home, then Albert is the guy to call, 916-230-1537, or check our website, sportstalk916.com. Baseball is trying something new, and it's gonna be fun to watch. Normally, it would be something I would say, hell no, I don't like this. I don't want anything to do with this. But it's definitely going to be interesting. They've partnered with the Atlantic League, which is basically lower end baseball. It's below AA. It's below single A. It's right outside basically like Arizona Rookie League, but they've partnered with the Atlantic Baseball League, and they tried something new at the All-Star game this week, as well as getting ready to implement some other changes at the midway point of the season. But the big one that happened over the All-Star break was robot umpires, and it debuted essentially without a hitch at the All-Star game. The main umpire, the home plate umpire, had an iPhone in his back pocket. He was able to, let me rephrase that. He had an iPhone in his back pocket. He had a AirPod, the Apple wireless AirPods, in his right ear. And if you Google it, you can see a picture of him. Just it fits right behind his mask. It's seamless, essentially. And he was able to basically get radio communication from the computer system, which is already in every single press box in all of baseball, every single level. There's a computer monitoring system that basically marks balls and strikes. Well, he is able to get the audio in. It tells him if it's a ball or strike. He relays that to the pitcher, and the game goes on. There was only one call that was questioned by a batter. That was a tailing fastball that clipped the bottom of the zone. The batter admitted that in a normal situation after the game, that probably in seeing it would have been a strike, but because of the positioning of a standard umpire and the crouch position, they wouldn't be able to see the ball tail away. It did catch the bottom of the zone, and it allowed for that ball and strike. During the fourth inning, there was a communication error between the iPhone and the system upstairs, which caused the system to go down. The umpire then resorted to using a standard ball and strike call like you would in a regular baseball game. Through that inning, they got it back online. Everything went without a hitch, and it went through, and they're going to continue to use it the rest of the season to see how things go, and go from there. The other thing here, hold on, let me do this. I'm going to try something new or different, because since we don't have an iPad, since we don't have the audio for that, and Veroza probably wants to chomp at the bit with this because, like I said before, he's old, and this is probably very much against his wheelhouse here. Hold on. I'm gonna see if I can't get Veroza on the phone here, and we'll continue this the old school way, because I know Greg's gonna want to chime in on this. So give me 2 seconds here to get my Face ID to work here. Call this guy. Hold on. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect. All right, good. Now I can hear you. So now you're going to talk about this because for whatever reason you can't get into the damn live stream, and it's a pain in the ass. And like I said, I don't know if you heard me or not, but I said this is a very get off my lawn moment, and I want you to be a part of this conversation.
Trust me, I heard. I got the old joke.
Perfect. So welcome back, Greg Veroza. We'll hammer this shit out this week and figure out what the hell's going on. But what's your thoughts on the Atlantic League using the robot umpire for the All-Star game and then potentially the rest of the season?
I'm going to surprise you. I got mixed emotions about it. Part of me says I like it because I want everybody to get things right. The other part is what you thought, and that is, part of the allure of baseball is the human error that's involved. And, it takes away that human error that is inherent in it. And I think that you're going to see more of a generic baseball game if a computer's calling the balls and strikes. Like I said, I want to have everything right. I like not being able to, to know that there's no, there's not going to be an error, and a strike is going to be a strike. But I also like you're not going to get that stare down between Joe West and Madison Bumgarner when Joe West is calling balls and strikes that Bumgarner doesn't think are balls and strikes.
Right.
You're going to take a part of the game out that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to take out a lot of the human dynamic. But at the same time, the end result and the end goal of all of this is to speed up the game. It's to fix the Yankee Red Sox dynamic of a baseball game where it takes 44 hours to finish a 9-inning game.
Yeah, but don't you think that if the umpires called the strike zone like it's supposed to be called, that it would speed up the game?
They would, and I think that's where I wonder if this is going to be a bend or break moment for Major League Baseball umpires. It's going to be one of those things where, look, the replacement is here. Either figure this shit out, or your guys are losing this part of the game. The zone is set up.
They don't call the top half of the strike zone,
right?
The top quarter of the strike zone. So players know that anything at the letters is going to be a ball.
Exactly.
A strike. So I think the way to fix it is just call it right. And I don't know. Here's my old get off the lawn guy moment. But I don't know that there's anything wrong with the game. I don't get how it needs to be. How can you speed the game up? What are you going to take, like 4 minutes off of it? I don't.
Yeah, that's going to be the hard part. And it's like, what is it worth? 4 minutes? Is it worth 15 minutes? Like, what exactly is going on here? And the other thing too is they set the zone up. I believe I read it was an inch below the it was right at the knees and an inch above the belt or right below the belt or something like that they set the zone up. And it's what a strike zone is supposed to be. It's not the interpretation of one pitcher or one umpire prefers the tight zone, the other umpire prefers the the traditional zone. Like, it takes away that human error, or it takes away that human preference.
Yeah,
and
but isn't the strike zone supposed to be below the letters, right below the letters?
That's the interpretation of it, but it's I think that was put in place when 90% of
was invented.
Well, yeah, but 90% of baseball players back then had essentially the same stance, right? They all were hunched over at the waist. They all had their own little like crunched together stance. You get a guy like Stanton, or I think Griffey kind of broke the mold. You get a guy like King Griffey Jr., who's 6'5", stands straight up, has no bend in his back whatsoever. His zone's 4.5 feet long because he's from the knees to the letters. Whereas, I don't know, give me someone that like Jeff Bagwell, who basically sat in a chair. If you go by his waistline was below his knees because of the angle that he sat at. He has like a 6-inch strike zone. So
right, I just looked it up, and I have the official, according to Rule 2.0, the Major League Baseball rule book. A strike zone is defined as that area over home plate, the upper limit of which is a horizontal line at the midpoint between the top of the shoulders and the top of the uniform. So,
well, that doesn't that even leaves gray area, because if you look, does it say top of the uniform or top of the logo on the chest piece? Because one would argue that top of the uniform is the top of the shirt, which is the shoulders anyway. So
uniform pants. I'm sorry. Between the top of the shoulders and the top of the uniform pants, and the lower level is a line at the hollow beneath the kneecap.
Yeah, and I think that's the way that they had the zone set up. They essentially had a holographic square set up over that zone. If your stance,
I think what it's supposed to be is pits to knees, and right now it's belt to knees.
Yeah, that could be, and it, as long as it's consistent, I'm good with it. My problem with it is 9 times out of 10, whatever, like Bill Miller's behind the plate, his zone in one inning, like when he first comes out, his coffee's still working, he's good to go, his zone is crisp. You get up there in the 7th, 8th inning, let's say he's doing a Yankees Red Sox game, he's 3 hours into a game, it's a different zone by the end of the game. And I think that's what I think people are getting pissed off about. It's like, look, there needs to be consistency. And I think that the fact that they're starting this out in such a low level of baseball, it's going to basically tell these umpires, look, get your shit together or we're moving on. And
I don't think it'll ever get to Major League Baseball, because I think the umpires would leave. And you could ignore it. I mean, it gives you a signal, but he could still call it a ball if it's supposed to be a strike. So
possibly
it's still up to the umpire. Okay, I looked it up again in a different place, and it's basically the midpoint of the torso, the upper torso, down to the top of the knees, or the bottom of the knees.
And that makes perfect sense.
Basically, where the letters are to the knees.
That makes, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you these other rules that are being implemented the second half of the Atlantic League season. They're going to ban pickoff moves in which a pitcher remains on the rubber. So no more sidestepping, throwing to first base. You got to come off the rubber to make a pickoff move.
I don't know. I don't get the reason for that rule.
I think it's just for removing deception. There's no more deception for the batter's eye, whatever that may be. It's just something they're trying out.
I don't like that.
They're going to allow a bunting player to foul off a 2-strike pitch before striking out.
Okay, how's that going to shorten the game?
It's not.
That's going to make the game longer.
Right. Command umpires to rule on check swings in a batter-friendly manner, whatever the hell that means.
So that means that there's going to be fewer called third strikes or called strikes,
which is going to elongate the game.
Right.
How about this one? They're expanding the drop third strike rule to all counts.
Yeah, I saw that.
So they're essentially going to allow you to steal first base. In the second half of the season, the league will allow batters to steal first base. Any pitch on any count not caught in flight will be considered a live ball, and a batter may run to third base similar to a drop third strike. Now,
run to first base. You said third.
I did say third base. So if you have Billy Hamilton on base, who's probably arguably one of the fastest people in baseball, ball gets away from the catcher on a 1-0 count. He runs the first. Okay, cool. They have a runner on first base, but is it going to be the same? Like, how are they amending this? Because if it's a strike three, well, I guess if it's a strike three and you get there and the ball beats you there, you're still a strikeout. So is it going to be considered a walk? Is it going to be considered a steal? Like, how are they implementing that? Like, that one I'm not really sure, but I don't mind little
tweaks. Like, if I had to choose out of all those, I'd probably go with the computer strike zone. But you're changing the fabric of the game. You're completely changing. Being able to steal first base is something that's it's not a part of the game. It's adding a new element.
Let me ask you this then, because the reason that they're adding these new elements into the game of baseball is because they're losing the younger fan for the game of baseball. Now, do you think if they don't implement some of these changes, that baseball is going to run on hard times like they did in '94 when the strike, and then needing the steroid era to kind of bounce it back? Because I feel very strongly that if they don't do something to bring more excitement to the game, like which Rob Manfred has said over and over and over again that they're not doing, but every pitcher in baseball has said the opposite.
They are.
Then if they don't do something about the game to make it more exciting, I think they're going to end up losing the game.
So do you think that the issue is with the game, or do you think the issue is the marketing of the players?
There is no marketing of players.
Well, yeah. So hear me out. You could walk down the street to LeBron James or any person on the starting five or any Sacramento Kings player can walk down the street and somebody's going to recognize them. Probably multiple people are
100%.
Okay. Football has gambling. And because of fantasy football and gambling, football has built-in interest.
Yep.
Can you tell me if you saw Mike Trout walking in the mall?
Nope.
Did you know that it's Mike Trout?
Not at all. He's one of my favorite players.
Right. If you knew the second baseman for the Giants are a little bit different things. We know all those players. But if
you could probably right now realistically pull up any roster outside of the Dodgers, the Giants, the A's, and maybe not even the Yankees. The Yankees are a AAA team. Probably those three teams, and to ask me who the second baseman is, and I'm probably not going to be able to tell you.
Right, and I think
maybe the Astros. I know them.
Giants, even with the Giants, other than the people that like Posey, Bell, Panic, Crawford, Pablo, if you saw anybody else walking down the street, you wouldn't recognize them.
I'll expand on that even further for you. Let me ask you this. Start of this season, the Giants don't wear names on the back of their home jerseys. The Giants opened the season this year in AT&T Park before they played any road games. When they had the Asian dude in left, I can't even think of his name now. What the hell is his name? The Asian kid in left field. My point exactly.
Jack something or other.
Like TJ will probably remember it, but like I don't know. Like, what the hell is his name? He came from the Dodgers organization. Whatever. And then you had Duggar in center, and you had Mr. Joe Schmo in right. You've never ever, like, there's never even been a team for the Giants that when Connor Joe, thank you, TJ.
Connor Joe.
Who the, like, seriously, never would I have been like, let me phrase how I'm saying this, because I'm getting frustrated by it, because I agree with you 100% and baseball's marketing is so broken. I've never in my life, as a Giants fan, had to go to the Giants website and look up a roster on opening day.
Yeah.
And the Giants, because we are fans of them, do a fantastic job with their commercials and their marketing for their team on their networks.
Right.
And I still didn't know who the hell half these players were.
Right.
And that right there is a problem. When your own fan base doesn't, Michael Reed was the other guy. When your own fan base doesn't know who your players are, there's a big problem.
Right. And so everybody knows I coach swimming, and I deal with kids from 5 years old to 18 years old. I had more kids playing softball and baseball this year than I've ever had in my life as a coach. And I'm sure that you fell in love with the game when you were, 10 years old?
Younger probably, but yeah.
Okay. So it was exciting to you then, right?
Yeah.
And so I realized that our lifestyle is different than when it was that day. But I don't think the problem is with the game. I think the problem is Major League Baseball has done such a shitty job of marketing its players and getting their names out in the public that people just don't know who they are. So it's just a bunch of guys out there playing baseball. But, people buy tickets to come see LeBron James. People go buy tickets to go see Anthony Davis. People go and buy tickets to come pick a player. They don't necessarily come to see the Toronto Raptors.
Right.
They don't necessarily come to see the team. They come to see the players that they know. The NFL, people go to see the players that are on their fantasy teams and their team itself. And there's a much more built-in team loyalty fan base than in any other sport. And every single game is on national TV.
And here's a problem with major, and this will be the last thing before we move on from this, since we got such a late start today. But there's a problem with your marketing when a football player is more recognizable than a baseball player on the street.
Yep. And
those football players are larger than life on the screen because of the pads that they wear and the helmet that they wear. You don't even see that player's face 80% of the game, yet they're still more recognizable than a baseball player who's wearing a shirt and a hat with 100% clear face.
Let me ask you this. How many commercials do you see the biggest stars in the NFL on?
A bunch of them.
How many commercials do you see the biggest stars in the NBA on?
All of them.
How many commercials do you see with anybody from major leagues, not in a local market?
I don't think there's any. I other than ESPN rolling out their like Sports Center stuff,
yep,
which they're not even doing a lot of anymore these days as it is. I'm not sure that other than maybe I can't even think of one that has a true presence. And if they're in it, there's no way of linking them to the fact that they're a Major League Baseball player.
Right.
It's just, hey, look at that. There's Mike Trout. Cool. His name ran across the board, but it's like you don't put two and two together.
Right.
So I would even go as far to say that hockey has a better way of polarizing their players than baseball does. And hockey doesn't do any advertising at all. Yet somehow people know, they know who the Sidney Crosbys and the Alexander Ovechkins and, and the Joe Thorntons of the world are. Yet they wear a helmet and pads and masks, and they're bigger than life on the screen. Yet those guys, maybe it's because they're all missing teeth. It's easy to be like, oh, you must be a hockey player. But
well, no, I think hockey players are probably some of the most accessible athletes
because they get it. They're normal people.
They do. They get it. They interact with the fans.
Let me ask you this before you even elaborate on that. because I think I wonder if, do you think that is because of the fact, and I'm not trying to say that, Erik Karlsson making, $68 or $88 million over a 10-year contract or whatever is not a lot of money, because obviously that's a ton of money. But do you think that because they're not making $300 million contracts, $200 million contracts, that they're not, they don't view themselves as larger than life? If you look at it based on, if you compare salaries from Major League Baseball to the NFL, to the NBA, to NHL, they're the peasants of professional sports. So I wonder if they don't see themselves on that same pedestal as, what the hell's his name? Bryce Harper, who just got $330 million, or, Aaron Rodgers, who got 200 and something million, or, LeBron that's getting a $194 million contract. I wonder if they see themselves as a little bit more humbled because of the fact that they're not getting paid a bajillion dollars a play. Like, they still play, they're getting paid a lot of money, but I feel like the lower scale that they get paid on still keeps them connected to the game that they love and not just the dollar signs. I
think that's part of it. I think the other part is look at the Canadian influence in hockey. Canadians, I mean, they have a reputation of being down to earth and nice. And I think that you have a large contingent of Canadians. I think a lot of the Americans that play have a lot of Canadian influence. And I think that's as much of a factor as anything else, is the people that they're playing with.
Maybe.
They see the stars that for the most part, up until the last couple of years, have been primarily Canadian.
Yeah.
And they're just more down-to-earth people than we are. So I think that plays as much of it as anything. So I think, getting back to baseball, I don't think it's the game, because we all fell in love with it when we were 9 years old. And if we're going to be bored with anything, it's when we're 9 years old. And
yeah, maybe.
I think that they just have to relook at getting their players out there and getting them into the public and showing more human highlights. And I don't know if you went over the thing the Angels did, but bringing more human side of it,
yeah,
than they get now. Like I said, I think these little mini fixes are not going to speed up the game.
I agree. Since we're talking rule changes, real quick, I'm going to go over a couple other ones that are happening in different sports. The NBA is going to continue to roll out their challenge flag.
Yeah.
That's going to be extremely interesting. I'll just read through some of the things. Each team is entitled to one challenge in the game, regardless of whether the challenge is successful. A team can use this challenge in the following instances: a called personal foul, charge to its own team, a called out of bounds violation, or a called goaltending or basket interference. A team can use this challenge on a called personal foul at any point in the game, in the last 2 minutes of the fourth period, or the last 2 minutes of overtime. A called out of bounds violation or called goaltending basket will not be challengeable and instead will be exclusively triggered by the on-court referees. To initiate a challenge, a team must immediately call a timeout, and the head coach must immediately signal for a challenge by twirling his finger toward the referee. So it's unlike the NFL, where if you lose your challenge, then you lose a timeout. The NBA, you're using a timeout regardless.
Yeah.
Which I think is a little bit different. If an attempt to challenge an event with no remaining timeouts, the team is charged a technical foul or excessive. It's a technical foul, and no challenge will take place. If a team calls a timeout to challenge an event that may not be reviewed, the team will be charged a timeout but retain its challenge, which I think is dumb. If you don't know the rules for the challenge, then you should lose your challenge.
Yeah.
As with other replay reviews, in order to overturn the event, it's called on the floor, blah, blah, blah. In the first 46 minutes of the game, the replay center will be able to challenge 2 or 3 point field goals, potential shot clock violations. But the thing that I think is best about all of this, and I think the NBA has it the worst of all the sports, is a new courtside administrator hired and supervised by the league offices will be stationed at the scores table to facilitate and expedite communications between the replay center and the on-court referees. The courtside administrator will not have any decision-making authority with respect to the call, but will be the one that's communicating with Skaggs. So there's not going to be that 40-minute fucking delay. Like, they're going to talk to him. It's going to be, look, it's either there or it's not, and we're moving on. Because the NBA is the worst. Like, if you listen to Kings games or even anything on NBA TV, the one thing you hear about replay reviews is, come on, it's been 3 minutes. It's been 4 minutes. If you haven't figured it out by now, it's not changing. Why are we still talking about this?
Right.
So having an on-court administrator, I think, is going to be a great move. And they're going to, continue to process this throughout the offseason. What do you think about the expansion of replay in the NBA? Do you think it's something that's necessary?
I think they just need to get what they do now correct. I mean, the calls are just, they need to make the calls in a proper amount of time.
I think they just take too goddamn long.
They do. We're watching it on TV. They're getting the replays that we have, if not better, because they have both TV feeds, both home and away.
Right.
They have access to. If they can't see, we can see them in the first. How often does it take more than 2 replays for you to figure out? Oh, hey, ball went off of this guy instead of this guy.
It shouldn't. And I think if it takes more than a minute and you haven't changed it, then leave the call as it is and move along with the game.
No, I agree.
Because there's instances where it's taking 4, 5, 6 minutes. You're giving those coaches on the sideline, extra timeouts essentially, and no one has a 6-minute timeout. Like, that's ridiculous. So get it right or move along. So I agree with that.
Yep.
The other rule change that's coming along, that is a proposed change, and I think this is about as ludicrous as any of them that I've seen, is the NBA or the NFL, I'm sorry, the owners have proposed a change from 16 to 18 games.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But they're asking for a 16-game limit for their players. So how if you're the owner of the Green Bay Packers and you have Aaron Rodgers, 49ers, you have Jimmy Garoppolo, who makes a buttload of money every single game, right?
Right.
Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, well, Brady maybe, but who else is up there? Derek Carr, like all these different players that make more money than you could ever shake a stick at. How are you going to implement a 16-game limit? How are you going to decide that this game doesn't matter? Or you're going to go and you're going to put, let's say it's you're in the middle of the season, you're Aaron Rodgers, you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, right? And the only reason why I'm using this is because his backup pops into my head for whatever reason, because he was just in the media. You have Kaiser behind him as his backup, right?
Mm-hmm.
How as a coach are you going to be confident in a game that ultimately could matter at the end of the year? Let's say it's week 11. Maybe it's going into your bye week, right? You have bye week 12. So you're like, you know what? I'm going to give Aaron Rodgers the second week off. I'm going to put Deshaun Kaiser in there. How do you feel confident with a backup quarterback going into 2 different games of a season because you have to rest your star player? Like, how is that even going to work in any stretch of the rule?
It's not. It's a stupid rule. I mean, are you going to basically have 2 preseason games in the middle of the season?
That's exactly my first thought. So it's like, okay, so I'm the Giants. I have Saquon Barkley, or I have Le'Veon Bell, or insert dominant ass player here. The Rams with what the hell's his name? I'm drawing something. I really need to figure this out because we have fantasy football coming up. Todd Gurley coming up, right? Week 9, you're gonna be like, hey, Gurley, you got to sit a game.
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck is that gonna go over? That makes no sense to me. The NFL owners are about as out of touch as you can possibly be with your sport. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Yeah. And of course, it's all money related. The owners are enticed by the idea of a longer season, considering that more revenue it could create. An analysis done by the NFL Players Association found that up to $2.5 billion in additional revenue could be generated with 2 more games. That would add $15 million more to each team's salary cap and give players more money. However, players say
you're going to have to expand rosters if you're going to.
Yeah, they're going to expand the rosters as well. But it also says here that Players say adding more games takes away from the arguments made during bargaining sessions. Players worry the increase of injuries may happen late in the season and see a risk of the potential 17th, 18th game. The Wall Street Journal reports there are 4,000 injuries in the league per year, and the union estimates adding more games could bring down the average NFL career span from 3.5 years or 3.3 years to 2.8. That dip is important because players become eligible for post-career benefits like health insurance and pensions after 3 years. Players also reportedly think that 16-game limit is unrealistic because they don't want to be forced to sit out games when the stakes are high. Right. No players are banging down my door asking me to do this, says Eric Winston, president of the Players Association. Owners previously suggested an 18-game schedule during 2011 when a 132-day lockout threatened the start of the season. The current collective bargaining agreement doesn't end until after 2020. It doesn't make sense. The owners are so infatuated with money, and I think Goodell's the big part of that. You know what? Yeah, TJ, let's be selfish here for a second. Fuck the owners that have all this damn money coming in, right? What about us? What about us as fantasy football owners who take this shit so seriously? If I draft Todd Gurley number 1 overall, how much harder is? I mean, it's already hard enough to remember to check the injury wires and all this other shit like on Wednesday before a Thursday night game, which is stupid as it is. Now I got to watch to make sure that you're not going to be on a 2-game break.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, wait, he's sitting out on his rest game. No, fuck that. Fuck you, Roger Goodell. Leave it at 16 games. If you want, either leave it at 16 games or kill the preseason altogether, because that's where the majority of your major injuries happen, and make it an 18-game season and leave it as it is. You can't have it both ways. Sean Carrera, speaking of fantasy, who doing league? We'll get to that here in a little bit. I think we're going to, due to the fact that we started so late and I have a bunch of shit going on today, I think we're going to hold off on the NBA and the Kings fans talk until next week, because I want your reactions to be on camera for these. So we'll get to the Russell Westbrook and the Sammy Spearman, reactions and all the fan talk about the different stuff that's going on with the NBA as things settle down a little bit, because not all players are signed. I mean, there was news today that Kosta Koufis is getting interest from different teams. So I want to make sure that we have all of the pertinent players under contract before we really get into what's going on with the NBA, because Kosta Koufis could be a deal breaker for many teams.
Yeah,
but I definitely want to make sure that you're on, and I don't want to be capped for time. Like I'm already past the time we should have been off the air today because of the fact of what's going on today with family stuff. So we'll get to that next. Well, you're not here next week.
No, I'm here next week. I'm
okay,
not here the week after.
Next week we'll get to that then. No, fuck, I'm not here next week. I'm in Utah next weekend. We'll get to it. There's plenty to get to. Or maybe we'll do a midweek show. We'll figure something out. We'll get to that.
I'm not here the 2 weekends after that.
We'll make it happen. In a nutshell, Kings fans are delirious, and they're led by Sammy Spearman, who, I'm not going to knock him for not knowing things, because he does know his shit, but damn, sometimes he's just irrational as all hell.
He doesn't have a conversation. He just throws shit out there.
Exactly. He doesn't have talking points that substantiate what he's going through or what he's proposing. And we'll get into all that a little bit later on that's going to be happening all year long. So we can get to that whenever we want. Right. As far as fantasy football goes, we're going to have a sit down and talk with our existing league. Every year we run 2 to 3 leagues in our little community of Sports Talk 916. We have our main league, which is it's been our ongoing league. It's been going on since 2013. This is year 6. That one is exclusive to returning league players. Right now we have, and listeners of the show, right now we have, I believe, 8 people in the league. We may expand it to 10, so we'll keep everybody abreast of that. And then we always have a secondary league, and last year we even had a third league. We had a tertiary league that we may expand to again if there's enough interest.
I wasn't in the secondary league, by the way.
Right, because you didn't want to be. You said you were in like 14 fantasy football leagues last year.
Well, this year I want to be.
All right, so we'll make sure you're in that one. So we'll definitely have a listeners league. We're also going to continue our yearly our pick'em pool. Hopefully this year more people will participate in that. We do a weekly pick'em through CBS Sports. I think Yahoo's actually implementing a pick'em this year as well, which would be really nice. We can keep it all in one little area. So there will be more information about that. If you're interested in coming to our live draft, which we do every year at Buffalo Wild Wings in Citrus Heights, you can meet the fabulous Mike Barnbaum, who's normally there. That's likely going to be happening either August 15th or September 1st. I'm sorry, August 25th or September 1st, the final 2 Sundays before the league year starts. We usually like to wait until the very end because of the fact that, the aforementioned injuries that occur during preseason. We like to make sure all of that shit is passed before we draft our teams. So keep a lookout on Facebook for that. We usually reserve the whole back patio, and we just have everybody out there and have a good time and do our live draft and make that happen.
Last year we were inside.
Yeah, last year we were inside just because it was like 190 degrees outside.
Right.
So we'll kind of play that by ear, but I usually reserve a space for like 20, 25 people, regardless of how many show up. That way we have room for everybody. So that'll be fun as well to accommodate. So keep an eye out for that. We'll definitely keep everybody abreast on that. Yeah, TJ Forrest Gump will be there. TJ has his Forrest Gump jersey, and I have my debut jersey that I'm still not going to release. It won't be the Bobby Boucher, but there's that secondary one that I'm bringing with me. That may include a write-in draft pick based on that jersey that I'm wearing. So we'll see how that goes. But so next week, like I said, I won't be in town. We'll maybe try to do an early show, maybe like a Thursday. I don't know what your swim nights are. We'll try to figure something out. To try to get.
Can you do it remotely?
I'll be driving on Sunday. I'll be in Utah. We'll figure something out. We'll make it work. But until then, we'll keep everybody updated on what we can figure out. Maybe we'll do a test run during the week. If I can't do it, then we'll do a test run and see if it's in TJ or someone to actually get it to work.
Right.
And then we'll go from there. So, but that's what we have for this week. Lots of stuff. This should be up on iTunes, Spotify, and all the other platforms by the end of the day. Do you have anything else you wanted to add? I know you weren't in for the very beginning of the show. We talked about this Tyler Skaggs thing and the possibilities of the Giants still making the playoffs, but anything else you wanted to add in there?
Nah, I'm good.
Perfect. So for Greg Veroza, I'm Greg Bowl. This was episode 286 of this little shindig that we call Sports Talk 916. We will see you guys hopefully at some point this week, for next week, and then for the weeks to come.
Night, Larry.